and it's not something I recommend to anyone who is not prepared for the challenges. Building a complex family from 4 separate home marriages has its own challenges. My wives and I have had to learn to be understanding, kind, compassionate, and patient. We have had to develop ourselves morally and ethically, and the demands on a plural family are far greater than those on a monogamous couple. Since we have had to consider the sensitivity of the other wives and marriages on an everyday basis, plural marriage consistently challenges us. It makes us confront our jealousy, contain our aggression. We have had to check our selflessness. There is no room for ego in plural marriage. Although we know these things, we are by no means perfect. Each member of my family has his or her own flaws. Every day we must work toward a higher level of communication with one another. In the end, our acceptance of the doctrine of plural marriage allows us to transcend our limitations and become enlightened. It challenges us to be the best version of ourselves in this lifetime. I know people probably misinterpret what I do. They probably think I'm wife hoarding, that I'm satisfying my carnality at the expense of my wives' feelings. I know there are people out there who assume I'm some sort of macho pig. Well, this couldn't be further from the truth. I understand the misconception comes from the perceived imbalance in the practice. Why can't I have multiple wives? Yet my wives cannot have multiple husbands. In the first place, that is not our commandment. Second, when my wives are asked if they would take a second husband, they emphatically answer not interested. Perhaps there are people out there whom taking plural husbands is a viable lifestyle. Perhaps there is a religion where this is a sacred way of life, but this is not our faith. Each of my wives has come into our family of her own free will. Choosing to join a plural family has been their choices, their preferences. It's something they prayed over and sought out of their own volitions. Believe it or not, some of them made the first move, asking to join my family even before I proposed. When I say I love each of my wives wholly, passionately, and internally, I'm telling the truth. I believe that with each of my wives, I share a destiny, that together we 5 adults, predetermined to be one family. We believe on a very deep level that we belong together in absolute fashion. We are meant to be. So, how can I love for a woman? It's a fair question and an easy one to answer. Loving them is simple. It's like breathing, waking up in the morning, putting one foot in front of the other. It's one of those things you do unconsciously. Some things are deeply ingrained in your physique, your psyche, and your way of being that you never question it. It's hard to explain how I love my wife to someone who is not inside the principle. The simplest analogy is of a mother who is pregnant with her second child and worries that she will not love this one as much as she loved her first. It's an honest fear, but on the day her new baby is born, she loves it as much as her firstborn. She loves it independently of her, but she loves them independently for their different qualities. She loves one because he's a remarkable athlete, but she doesn't love him any less because he's a terrible student. Even as she loves the other for her sense of humor and her scholarly habits. It's the same with my wives, but on a much more intimate level. I love them for different reasons, for their different strengths and their different passions and talents. I love them for their weaknesses and their humanity, but I don't love them more or less than the others. Being in love with 4 women is easy, but not easy at the same time, since my wives are so different from one another and so independent. Each of my marriages is distinct, and each is dynamic in its own way. I can't always pinpoint the moment I fell in love with each of my individual wives, and I don't always feel that love all the time. But the love is so deep, I can't imagine being without it. Our bond is the kind of thing you need for the rest of your life, not in a codependent way, but in a way that bonds us so deeply that when I have been away from one for too long, I feel an emotional ache. To be honest, I am not sure if any one of my wives could fulfill all of my needs, or do I believe that I'm fulfilling all of theirs. So now that I can talk business. With Christine, I enjoy the lightness of being together. With Mary, the world is structured and organized. Her house is peaceful and in order. When Robin came into the family, she brought about an emotional honesty that requires me to start dealing with things I avoided. A lot of people wonder if there's a plan or system for taking a new wife. If there is, I've yet to see it. The only requirement is that I have a spiritual connection with a woman I'm considering courting, and that she feels connected not only to me, but also to my family. In some cases, in our family, the woman makes the first move. If she feels drawn to a certain family or man, she can make her interest known through her father, but she must be willing to join herself not only to her potential husband, but also his wives. Of course, a man must have permission of his wives to consider a courtship. After all, the woman he wishes to court is going to be as much part of his wife's lives as she will be his. If my wife didn't want me to pursue a relationship with someone, I'd have no choice but to obey their wishes. My first duty is to them. I married my first wife relatively quickly and relatively young by conventional standards, if not those of our faith. Each relationship developed along its own lines for its own reasons with its own trajectory. After 16 years together as a family, I found myself in the position to pursue a new courtship. I was as surprised by this as my wives were, and I know it would involve a serious adjustment on their part. If I hadn't had their blessing, I'd never gone forward with courting Robin. Family always comes first. Standing backstage in Los Angeles, I'm getting nervous. I know that when I go public, there will be questions about sex. It's an American obsession. After all, even though my show is a family television program on a family-oriented network, the world wants to know what's going on behind closed doors. All I want to say is my marriages aren't different from anyone's in that respect. As in most relationships, passion is always there, but